Until Dawn is directed by David F. Sandberg and stars Ella Rubin, Odessa Ezion, I'm sorry if I can't get her name right, Peter Stormare, and among others. And this story, it deals with a group of people. They end up getting caught in this storm that causes them to go to this house that's in the middle of the woods, and they're looking for one of the main characters' sister. And along the way, when they come across this house, they start to discover some crazy stuff happening where a mass killer's after them. They encounter some really weird entities that are going around trying to kill them. And essentially, if you've seen from the trailers, they end up pretty much getting killed night after night. And the whole gimmick is that essentially each time they get killed, the clock resets and they end up having to survive the night again and restart. Only this time, the night changes every night to where it's always a different scenario. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by David F. Sandberg, who I've actually admired as a horror director because he's actually directed some other films that I've actually enjoyed, including Lights Out and Annabelle Creations. He also did Shazam, which I really did love, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Shazam: Fury of the Gods. But I've admired the guy as a director, and it's great to see him coming back into horror. And from the get-go, I didn't really know if they were going to really necessarily make it Until Dawn movie because, funny enough, I actually got a chance to finally play the game on the PS4 not too long ago, and I finally beat it a few months ago. And I got to say that after all these years not being able to play it since it's come out, I did really enjoy the game a lot. And I think that it really gives you that kind of immersive feel of being that kind of interactive horror type experience where you get to make your own choices and stuff, and having to survive the night with all your friends and everything. And the game does have some really interesting vibes of trying to explore a lot of great stuff that's in the lore, and a lot of the mystery that's surrounding it. It keeps you really guessing, and the whole gimmick of the game was that essentially you're having to make your own choices. That every choice that you make wrong affects either the character's death or it affects the way that the story plays out. And I really get a kick out of those type of games because it keeps the experience going to where you can get different endings every time. And whenever it plays into a lot of the replayability every time you get a different scenario every time with it. And so when I heard the news that they were going to do an Until Dawn movie, I was actually against it for a while because I was like, okay, what are they really going to do from the story of this? Are they just going to basically just do a carbon copy from the game? Because it seems like that's the only really logical thing they could really do. And seeing how the game came out about 10 years ago, it's really, too late to recast to get the original cast back and everything since they, gotten older. And so them going with the whole gimmick of it pretty much being a Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow type of approach, I feel like was probably the best idea, because doing something like this in the game is a whole lot of different because you're actually using a controller and you're having to pretty much make your own experiences. But with that being said, though, if it was me having to come up with a different gimmick, and this is just me because from what I heard back in the 80s, they actually did do a thing where they had the movie Clue that came out, and for that one, there was a gimmick where when the movie ended, you get to go to a different theater and get a different ending every time. I think if they would have done something like this for this movie, I think that would have probably been a really unique approach, or at least give something very creative liberties to do like choose your own adventure type of vibe. So going into it, I didn't really. I kind of knew that I kind of figured that they were going to do something different, and so. But it was also cool seeing how that they got Peter Stormare back, because he does play a big part in the game. Where there's not going to spoil anything, but there's actual points in the game where he's actually literally talking to the character you're playing as and stuff. And so my expectations for this were about, kind of iffy. I was kind of curious on how it played out, and I was actually interested to see how it did. And so after upon seeing the film, I can say that I had a good time with this film. I thought it was decent, but I did feel like there was a lot of things that I feel like kept the movie back from being great. But I still see what they were going for in this, because there's also some creative liberties I got to give them credit for that they did at least honor with the games with the game, that I think also plays an effect with how it actually sets everything up too. And I won't spoil anything, but to get into my pros, I did think that at least the performances of the cast were good. They were there, there's nothing really to write home about, but they still did their job in being able to play up with the scares and stuff. And I think the ones that really stand out the best for me is Odessa and the girl that plays Clover and Megan. I think those three really held their ground. And the other biggest standout is definitely Peter Stormare, because every time I see the guy in a lot of movies, he's just always a blast to watch, and he's no different here. He's just he's really great. But also, I got to really appreciate is how the movie puts you in the right kind of atmosphere, like it would be from the games, where you get in the creepy house, and you get to see a lot of other stuff that's going beyond the house. And then there's other things they also explore later on in the film that I got to really give it a hand with the production design and the tension that they do build up in certain spots when it's them having to hide out from like some of the entities and stuff. I thought was creative, and it definitely does have a couple of unique scare points that did get to me at times. And I got to give it really handed to the gore in this. Like, this is going for the most insane, like, some brutal stuff that I was really pleased to see. And the whole idea of them pretty much getting killed every night and repeatedly and everything was fun to watch for a while. But I can definitely see that and that's some of my, I'll get into some of my cons of later. It does kind of overstay its welcome for a bit because you are starting to kind of to see a lot of rinse and repeat on stuff. Not necessarily the devs, the same type of devs, but a lot of the same routine as it goes along with the movie. But the deaths were great, and I also did really appreciate how they kept the vibe of the idea of them trying to keep some stuff that was also from the games too about, not going to go into spoilers, but there's also a really big thing that happens toward the end of the film that I almost kind of wonder if this was actually intentional with them having to how it plays into the ending of it. So I'll leave it there because that was actually a really nice, clever thing that they did that was actually from the game. But now, if I had to get into some of my cons, we'll have to say that unfortunately, what holds the movie back is definitely the writing because a lot of the characters in this, they don't, the characters in the whole movie, they don't really come across as very like really ones I really care too much for. Like the main girl that you kind of spend like the most time with that's looking for a sister, you do start to get into more stuff that it delves deeper into later on in the film. But I feel like it's not really earned because we don't really spend like the actual build up in the beginning to like really get to know the characters. Because at least, even in the game, you did actually get to see a lot more of the personalities play out a lot better. And even though there are characters in the game too that come across as very asshole-ish and ones that you're not really that are not very likable much, the way that you actually play them and their actions that fall into the game is what really kept it vibing. And after a while, while it's fun to see all the characters getting killed in various ways, it comes to a point where once it starts to run off, it starts to wear thin, especially when you get into toward the later half, where they're having to survive more and stuff. And there is some stuff that I feel like that they could have really put more of the, like, either added some more humor with. That could have really been like a good double feature with the Cabin in the Woods, because it did actually have me some vibe. It was reminding me of vibes of that, but kind of more on a low rent type of vibe with that, because it does have some really cool creatures they set up in the film. But some of them you do kind of see that they get rinse and repeat throughout the movie, especially the one with the mask and everything that kind of comes here and there. And then there's also some other ones that I felt like that they really could have explored more with, but we didn't really get much to really spend time on. And so, and also it was kind of giving me some Silent Hill vibes, because there's actually a part that, I shit you not, that actually reminds me straight out of it with the whole, where there's actually a siren that goes off. And so the movie does put you in the right kind of atmosphere and feeling of like the game, but it also of what you would expect, but it just feels like it's really missing some stuff that really could have added a lot more layers to it. And so that's what I think is really holds the movie back more, is that it's very just your standard, people doing some dumb mistakes and they don't believe certain characters, which ironically enough, one of the people that's actually trying to be smart and stuff is one that actually that the characters don't even really listen to. And so you can definitely tell how the movie goes along, where they make a lot of dumb mistakes and a lot of the same shit that you've seen before. But as it went along too, it kept me still, it did keep things unpredictable, because I was still curious on where it was going and everything. And so there's more going into detail, but that's really the gist of it. It's definitely one that I consider, at least, I'm glad it was made. But if you're trying to look for something that's a lot more closer to the game and stuff, I think that if it gets a home media release later on, they need to do something to where you can at least get alternate endings, or if they really want to create the gimmick where if you're actually at home and you have the choice to choose different options. Like, this is actually something that happened with the Final Destination 3 DVD. If you have the special edition on DVD of Final Destination 3, you get to choose your own adventure of how different things play out. And I think that would be something that I hope that we get for at least the home media release. Because if they do that I think will actually add some more stuff to the actual movie as well for me. And so, overall, I'm going to give the movie a high average Joe on the Film Freaks meter. And so, for those of you who have also seen Until Dawn, and have also played the video game as well, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.